The Canada Court Watch program has ascertained that it is against the Charter of Rights for the Children's Aid Society to be setting up shop in the public school system. In fact, it is so serious that one could allege, and I think with significant accuracy, that it's almost like putting the fox into the hen or the chicken coop. Because, unfortunately, as much as the public would not like to recognize this, the Children's Aid Societies, tragically, are a money-making operation. They are privately run organizations, and many people don't realize that. And for every file that they can manage to wangle open, of course, they cry hard times and say they've got all these terrible things, they can't keep up with it. But one of the reasons we have discovered that they want to get into the schools is to create more money. And it's a tragic realization that this is being done on the backs of Canadian families, hard-working families, mothers and fathers who love their children.
Peter, you first. Does the government need to legislate some kind of watchdog to specifically deal with children's aid societies in Ontario?
We've got to go far beyond that. Children's aid is out of control. There's absolutely no accountability whatsoever. The government has refused to enact legislation that would give the provincial ombudsman oversight capacity vis-a-vis children's aid, family and children's services. Let's understand this is a private corporation, a private organization. It's not a part of the government. No accountability. I say it's time to shut it down. The government should be directly delivering child protection services.
The public school system, and I worked in that system for over 33 years, and latterly I retired in 2003 and I'm back to full-time church work, but latterly I noticed there were posters being agreed to by the administration in the hallway. Are you being abused at home? If so, call this. What is abuse? Are your mum and dad telling you what to do too much? You know, opening the door for them to get involved. And I've even heard of, and quite recently too, of young, in fact, an admission by a young 16-year-old girl who ended up in full-time custody of the Children's Aid Society by her own choice, because she was offered $500 a month on top of a place to live at the age of 16. Well, this is serious. It's an undermining of the family. In fact, it is a violation of the Canadian Charter of Rights for them to be in the schools interviewing children without the parents' permission. Now, of course, there are circumstances that are extraneous, whereby if abuse is obvious, then certain drastic measures have to be taken. But I think it's very important that we, as Canadians, stand on guard for the basic rights of our children, and the mothers and fathers of our Canadian families need to be allowed to be just what they are. They don't need to be constantly being undermined by an organization that is supposedly, by its very name, to be assisting children and their families. At this particular juncture, we need to remember accountability, checks and balances are always required. And so, in my 33 years as an educator, I did encounter serious aberrations of Canadians' rights because of Children's Aid Society intervention. I have great concern that there seems to be almost an ignorance within the administration of the boards of education across this province and across the country with regard to the Children's Aid Societies of Canada. There seems to be a phobia. Even principals, vice principals, supervisory officers, and sometimes directors of boards, and certainly those that sit as trustees within the boards, many of them do not seem to be aware of what the law stipulates around children's aid. And the awful thing is, the Children's Aid Society takes advantage of that. And they have such a high profile, it's almost like a bully tactic, where they will issue these memos to school boards, saying obviously this has to be done, that has to be done, and yet the fact of the matter is, the laws of this country dictate that it is illegal and it is wrong for any children's aid worker to come into a school and to interrogate a child without parental permission. And yet it's done all the time. Done all the time to the huge detriment of that family. Then the question may rise, well, what happens if there is abuse? And there is abuse that does happen. We have to recognize that. What happens if there is abuse going on? Well, of course, there has to be protective action taken on behalf not only of the school and the classroom and the Children's Aid Society, but it must be done within the parameters and guidelines of Canadian law, and that is not happening.
Can you tell me about how you feel about children's aid workers coming to your school?
It's really embarrassing. I don't think they should do that, because then you get called down to the office, and then when you go back, like after you're done talking to the worker, then students are asking you questions about why you got called down and what's going on. And then even the secretaries and the principals, once they find out that a CIS worker has been there to talk to you, you get treated differently, because automatically it's always something about at home. People with authority never think that the CIS is wrong.
Are you allowed to see the children at school?
No,
It-
not
it-
allowed to come near the school.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I walked by the school one day and my children saw me. And 3 days later, received a letter that I was going to be taken to court and that there was going to be a restraining order that I'm not allowed in a certain area. And then my children were taken to the principal's office. If you ever see your mother again anywhere near it, you report it to us so we can telephone the police.
So the children are being asked to spy on one of their parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you see, if your mother comes anywhere near you, when she's not allowed to be, scream, and we will come and rescue you. Now, what kind of message is that sending to an 8-year-old kid?
Yeah.
You know, it's pathetic.
Every opportunity I have to tell people this story, especially in the Jewish community, because people don't know that this is going on. People find it so hard to believe that a children's aid society could act maliciously. It just goes outside of what people believe, but it's true.
And so Canada Court Watch is adamant that the Children's Aid Societies of Canada need to get out of the schools. Certainly, they can be involved and should be involved in cases where there is child abuse going on. But they must not be allowed to come into the classroom. In one school in particular, there was recent boasting by the administration that they now are so happy to have a social worker with her office right next door to the kindergarten class. This is wrong. And again, I go back to the analogy. This is like putting the fox into the chicken coop, because these people are looking for business. And unfortunately, they create that business if they don't have it, if it's not obvious. And it brings in the dollars, your dollars and mine. We must protect our children, but it must be done within the law and abiding by the Charter of Rights that every Canadian is allowed to be protected by, from the children to the adults to the adolescents and everything in between.